गणानां त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पतान शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम्। ॐ प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामविद्यवत्। ॐ गणेशाय नमः। ॐ सरस्वत्यै नमः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। वागीशाद्या सुमनसः सर्वार्थानामुपक्रमे यं नत्वा कृतकृत्या स्युः तं नमामि गजाननं। वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय कोटिसूर्यसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारंभं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम शन्नो मित्रशं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इंद्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुर्गुरुक्रमः। नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इंद्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वदी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। नमोस्तु ते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्र नेत्र येन त्वया भारत तैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमय प्रदीपः प्रपन्न श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयम्। नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेद विभागिने व्योमवत् व्याप्त देहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्म विद्वरम् सद्गुरुं ब्रह्म विद्वरं यस्य सन्निधि मात्रेण सर्वे शिष्याश्च सेवकाः कर्मक्षेत्रे प्रवर्तन्ते चिन्मयं तं नमाम्यहं चिन्मयं तं नमाम्यहम्. Sorry about that little hiccup there, everybody. Would like to get started. So last week we started our text Bhaja Govindam. In the last lecture, the key takeaways were we started with why we are studying this text. We started with the introduction of 4 Ds of Vedanta: Sadhana Chatushtaya, Viveka Vairagya, Shama Adi Shatka Sampatti, Mumukshutva. Bhaja Govindam is one of the Prakarana Granthas we are studying. It is also called as Moha Mudgara with a total of 31 verses. We learned that Bhaja Govindam is a Upadesha Vakya, a set of instructions for the sadhakas like us. Then we went through the definitions of the Shishya, meaning one should learn from a qualified teacher. One should focus on the inner journey, avoid any external pursuits and instant sense gratifications. This text will also teach us how to develop dosha drushti, defects in the world. I gave you 6 pointers on that, and how to develop pratipaksha bhavana, the contrarian or the other standpoint of view. And this text will also help us to develop vairagya, to develop a sense of urgency, to have the right priorities in life. Now, having learned the purpose of why we are studying the text Bhaja Govindam, let us focus our attention today to learn a little bit about the author, composer, Adi Shankaracharya ji. Most of you know, but just a little recap in the sense that Bhagavat Pada Shankaracharya ji was a great thinker and also a great philosopher of Advaita Vedanta. A lot of people mistakenly say that Adi Shankaracharya ji was the founder of Advaita Vedanta. That's an erroneous statement, because Advaita was there before he came in, around 8th century BC. Please read that book, Shankara the Missionary, published by our Chinmaya Mission. As I showed you last week, it gives you details on Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji's life story. Just to give you a short summary, Hindus had become very fragmented, and Buddhism was very dominant at that point when Shankaracharya ji had come in. We will study these various schools of Vedanta when we study Darshana Vichara, different points of view within Vedanta. See, when Buddha had come, there were a lot of religious practices. It had taken an extremist point of view. It had become violent. People had resorted to all sorts of dark religious practices. And at that time, Bhagavan Buddha had to come to curb these violent practices and even denouncing the Vedas. And he said, Ahimsa hi paramo dharma. The philosophy of Buddha at that time was considered practical, with values of non-injury, ahimsa, self-restraint, compassion, love for other beings, etc. Even they were getting fragmented when Shankaracharya ji came into picture into different subsets like Hinayana, Mahayana, etc., etc. It was at that period of intellectual chaos in our Hindu religion, Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji revived our Vedic culture by bringing in the non-dual philosophy from the Upanishads. As a missionary, he re-established Vedas as the pramana, revived the philosophical truths of the Upanishads as the basis of our Vedic culture. That's why our Puja Gurudev calls him the fittest spiritual general. Without going into very much detail, Shankaracharya ji was born in Kerala near a place called Kaladi in the 8th century to a Nambudari couple. His mother's name was Aryamba, father's name was Shivaguru. They prayed at a nearby Shiva temple in Thrissur, Kerala, for the birth of a child. Legend has that Lord Shiva appeared to both husband and wife in their dreams and offered them a choice. A mediocre son who would have a long life span, and an extraordinary son who would not live very long. So they had to make a choice. And legend has it that both of them had chosen the latter. Thus, a son was born to them. He was named as Shankara, meaning Sham Karoti iti Shankara, the bestower of happiness, in honor of Lord Shiva. Shankaracharya ji was an exquisite thinker. He had to accomplish a lot of things within a span of about 20 years or so, excluding his childhood. At the age of 32, he had accomplished all his work he came down for. His entire life can be summarized in one shloka. Ashtavarshe chaturvedi dvadashe sarvashastravit shodashe kritavan bhashyam dvatrimshe munirabhyagat. Around the age of 4, Shankaracharya ji had lost his father. His Upanayanam, the thread ceremony, was done at the age of 5. In the 7th year, as a brahmachari, he was going to the nearby houses for bhiksha. An interesting story here that he goes to this house nearby and says, bhavati bhikshan dehi. An old lady was living in that house who was doing fasting for Ekadasi, Upavasa Vrata. She had kept an amla fruit to break her fast, to break her Ekadasi Upavasa. Looking at this brilliant young boy who had come for Bhiksha, what did she do? She gives away the amla fruit that she had kept. Shankaracharya ji was so pleased with her, he composes the Kanakadhara Stotram. It has a total of 21 verses on goddess Lakshmi. It goes, the beginning shloka goes like, Angam hare pulaka bhushana mashrayanti Brunganganeva mukula bharanam tamalam Angikrita khila vibhutira pangalila Mangalyadastu mama mangala devataya. Just a sample of the total of 21 verses he composes on the spot. Goddess Lakshmi is so pleased. She rains golden amlas onto lady's house. In fact, this private property still is intact in Kerala. And when we happened to visit India last year, in 2019, we happened to visit this place during our last trip to India. Ashtavarshe Chaturvedi. By the age of 8, he had completed a thorough study of all of the 4 Vedas. A little story here, believe it or not, just like all mothers, even Shankaracharya's mother was opposed to him becoming a sannyasi. And you probably already know the story. He was bathing in the Purna river and a crocodile catches his leg and only his mother was nearby. Shankaracharya ji asked his mother to give him permission to become a sannyasi, and once she agrees, miraculously the crocodile lets go of him and he takes the oath of sannyasa. Dvadashe Sarva Shastravit. He had mastered the Shastras by the age of 12. Under his Diksha Guru, Sri Govinda Bhagavat Padacharya, who was a disciple of Sri Gauda Padacharya, who has written the Mandukya Karika. This was on the banks of river Narmada. So at the age of 16, Sri Shankaracharya ji writes the Bhashya or the commentary to Prasthanatrayi. What is Prasthanatrayi? Just a refresher. See, in our Shastras, there are 3 accepted sources from which different schools of Vedanta derive their authority, pramana. These 3 are called Prasthanatraya, which refers to the 3 sources of scriptural authority for a Vedantin. They are Upanishads, By the way, all the videos have been uploaded. You can go and get yourself introduced to all of the portions of the Veda, the final portion of the Veda, or the Jnana Kanda portion of the Veda. They are called Shruti Pramana or Shruti Prasthana, meaning knowledge with an emphasis on Shruti, the Vedas, that Apurusheya Grantha, that which is revealed to the rishis in their meditation. Then the number 2 is the Brahma Sutra or Nyaya Prasthana, meaning a knowledge source with an emphasis on logic. The third one, of course, everybody knows, Bhagavad Gita or Smriti Prasthana, meaning knowledge with an emphasis on Smriti Shastra. So the self-knowledge is the subject matter of the Jnanakanda portion of the Vedas, or Vedanta as we call it. Veda plus Anta literally means concluding portions of the Vedas, but refers to the end goal indicated by the Vedas, which is Brahman. Vede siddhyati siddhanta iti Vedanta. The philosophical conclusions arrived at and by and in the Vedas. These are called Upanishads. Traditionally, it is considered that there are 108 Upanishads that are authoritative and important, although there is 1,179 of them that are known. Of these, 10 are considered to be major Upanishads. Not because the subject matter is major or minor like our university studies. In all the Upanishads in the Vedas, the knowledge taught in them is the same. The knowledge of the self. Once a devotee asked our Puja Guruji Swami Tejomayananji, how many Upanishads do I have to study to realize? His answer was very simple. He said, how many mirrors do you need to see yourself? So the 10 major Upanishads are Ishavasya, Kena, Katha, Mundaka, Prashnopanishad, Mandukya, Aitariya, Taittariya, Chandogya, and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So Adi Shankaracharya ji wrote Bhashya on all of the 10 Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra, Vishnu Sahasranama, many more. So on his mission to spread the Advaita Vedanta philosophy, Adi Shankaracharya ji travels to Kashi, Banaras. His first disciple was a young man named Sanandana. During his later years, he taught these commentaries to his disciples. Just an interesting story. Shankaracharya ji is in Kashi. From one bank of Ganga river, he calls Sanandana, and he happens to be on the other side of the river, other bank. Sanandana, without even blinking his eye, as soon as he heard Guru's call, he crosses the river just by walking across, and as he was crossing, it is believed that a lotus came on to support him wherever he placed his foot. Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji is so impressed by his disciple, he gave him the name Padmapadacharya, lotus-footed one. While in Kashi, Maharshi Vedavyasaji also visits Bhagavan Shankaracharya while he was writing Brahma Sutra Bhashya in the guise of a old Brahmana. Adi Shankaracharya is believed to have debated the Brahmana for over 8 days when Maharshi Vedavyasa Muni reveals himself with his real identity, blesses him that his Bhashya is right. So in Kashi, Adi Shankaracharya ji was on his way to Vishwanatha temple, Kashi Vishwanatha temple. That is where is the setting for our text, Bhaja Govindam. I will tell you that story when we enter the text of Bhaja Govindam. But another composition in Kashi also happens. One day, when he comes across an untouchable, they call him Chandala, with 4 dogs. When he was asked to move aside by Shankaracharyaji's disciple, the untouchable replies, "Do you wish that I move my everlasting Atman, or the self, or this body that is made out of food?" Understanding that this untouchable was none other than Lord Shiva himself, and his 4 dogs are the 4 Vedas, Shankaracharya-ji prostrates to him, composing 5 shlokas known as Manisha Panchakam. Hopefully one day we will study that also. As I had mentioned before, at the time of Adi Shankaracharya ji, Hinduism had become very fragmented, was on the decline because of the influence of Buddhism and Jainism. It had become so fragmented with multiple sects, each quarreling with each other. The followers of Purva Mimamsa and Sankhya philosophy, Charvakas, who were atheists, they had become dominant, and they had even rejected the Vedas as pramana. How did he bring about the integration of everybody? What Shankaracharya ji did was he held Jnana Yajnas, discourses and debates, Vada, with leading scholars at that time in order to unify them. One of the most important of this Vada or argument was with Mandana Mishra, a Karmakandi at that time, who in turn will become the disciple of Shankaracharya ji, known as Sri Sureshwaracharya ji. He traveled by foot across the length and breadth of India to restore the study of Vedas and its heritage. Adi Shankaracharya ji, along with Madhvacharya ji, Ramanujacharya ji at that time, was instrumental in revival of Hinduism. Adi Shankaracharya ji had many disciples, but 4 most distinguished ones were as great as the master himself. They were Padmapadacharya, Sureshwaracharya, Hastamalakacharya, and Totakacharya. During his travels across the length and breadth of India, he established 4 mathas or pitams, like ashram, to unify the scattered, diverse groups within Hinduism. He selected 4 of his senior most disciples, as I mentioned, the 4 distinguished disciples, as the head of each of these mathas. They were assigned a task of maintaining and preserving one of the 4 Vedas and Mahavakya associated with each of them. That is why our Puja Gurudev called him the spiritual general who brought order to even sannyasins. For example, in South India, Sringeri Matha, where he appointed Sureshwaracharya ji as the head of the Matha. They follow Yajurveda, and the Mahavakya is Aham Brahmasmi. Usually, the sannyasins of this Matha will carry a last name like Saraswati, Bharati, etc. Our Chinmaya mission follows this lineage of gurus, Guru Parampara. In the Western India, he established a Matha in Dwaraka, Sharada Matha. Hastamalakacharya was appointed as the head of that, and they follow Samaveda with Mahavakya Tattvamasi. In North India, Badri with Jyotirmata, Totakacharya ji was the appointed chief there at that time. Atharva Veda with Ayamatma Brahma as the Mahavakya. They have Giri, Parvata, Sagara, etc. Sannyasi order. In East India, Puri with Govardhan Mata, Padmapadacharya ji was appointed as the chief there. They follow Rigveda with Pragnanam Brahma. This is like the famous Olan Mills picture of that time with Shankaracharya ji and the 4 disciples. Probably every household carries one of these. So the doctrine of Shankaracharya ji, Advaita or non-dualism, popularly known as Shankara Siddhanta, basically refers to identity of the self, Jivatma, and the whole, Brahman. The philosophy of Shankaracharya ji was unique, highly elevating. The essence of his philosophy was stated in half a shloka. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mitya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. Meaning, Brahman, the absolute alone, is real. Jagan Mitya, the world, is unreal or Mithya. It apparently seems real. And the Jiva, the individual soul, is not different from Brahman in his essential nature. Meaning, we are all basically divine, having a human experience. So Sri Shankaracharya ji wrote many commentaries or bhashyas on Brahma Sutra. The 10 Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita. He also wrote numerous Prakarana Granthas, like Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, Viveka Chudamani, Upadesha Sahasri, to name a few, including the text Bhaja Govindam we are studying. He wrote numerous devotional and meditative hymns. He has created what I would like to call it as a garden of Advaita. Just like a honeybee wanders around the garden, goes into each flower, picks a little bit of honey. Similarly, just that like that bee, we will wander around in Shankaracharya ji's garden of Advaita. I have picked about 10 of his compositions so that we can enjoy the Shankara Makaranda, the honey created by Shankaracharya ji. As usual, we will start with Lord Ganesha with Ganesha Pancharatnam. So the first bee, you can see that picture of that bee enjoying the composition. Mudakarat modakam sada vimukti sadakam kaladharavatam sakam vilasi lokarakshakam anayakaikanayakam vinashite bhadaityakam natashubhashunashakam namami tam vinayakam namami tam vinayakam. We will go to the second flower, Pratasmaranam, Pratasmarana Stotra. One sample from there. Pratasmarami hrudisam spuradatmatattvam Satchit sukham paramaham sagatim turiyam yat swapna jagara sushuptamavaiti nityam tad brahma nishkalamaham nacha bhuta sangha. The next flower the bee gets into is the Meenakshi Pancharatnam. Udyad bhanu sahasra koti sadrusham keyuraharo jvala bimboshtim smitadanta pankti ruchiram Pitambaralankratam Vishnu Brahma Surendra Sevita Padam Tattvaswarupam Shiva Meenakshim Pranatosmi Santatamaham Karunyavaram nidhim Meenakshim pranatosmi santatamaham Karunyavaram nidhim. The next one is from Kashi Vishwanatha Ashtakam. Gangatharangaramaniya jatakalapam Gauri nirantara vibhushita vamabhagam Narayana priyamanangamadapaharam Varanasi purapatim bhaja vishwanatham Varanasi purapatim bhaja vishwanatham. Next one is from the Guru Paduka Stotram. Ananta samsara samudratara naukayitabhyam guru bhaktidabhyam vairagya samrajyada pujanabhyam Namo Namah Shri Guru Padukabhyam Namo Namah Shri Guru Padukabhyam. The next one sample would be from Nirvana Shatakam or Atma Shatkam. Mano buddhya hankara chitta ninaham nacha shrotra jihve nacha ghrana netre nacha vyoma bhumir na tejo na vayuhu chidanandarupah Shivoham Shivoham Chidanandarupaha Shivoham Shivoham. These are meditative verses. The next one is his favorite god, Krishna, Achyutastakam, Achyutam Keshavam Ramanarayanam Krishna Damodaram Vasudevam Harim Sridharam Madhavam Gopika Vallabham Sridharam Madhavam Gopika Vallabham Janaki Nayakam Ramachandram Bhaje Janaki Nayakam Ramachandram Bhaje. Next one is from Guru Ashtakam. Shariram surupam tatha va kalatram yashascharu chitram dhanam merutulyam Manaschena lagnam gurorangri padme tatakim 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 tatakim. Next one is a sample from Kaupina Panchakam. Vedanta Vakyeshu Sadaramantah Bhikshanna Matrena Chatushtimantah Vishokamantah karane charantah kaupinavantah kalu bhagyavantah kaupinavantah kalu bhagyavantah. The next one is from his Saundarya Lahari. Bhavani tvam dase mayi vitara drushtim sakarunam iti stotum vanchan kathayati bhavani tvamiti yaha tadaiva tvam tasmai dishasi nija sayujya padavim mukunda brahmendra sputamakuta nirajita padam mukunda brahmendra sputamakuta nirajita padam. See, Adi Shankaracharya ji wrote like this, hundreds and thousands of pages of Bhashya, Vistara. He wrote many, many devotional hymns. A lot of people think he only taught Gnana Marga, but he wrote many, many stotrams on inculcating bhakti. But when it comes to brevity, Mahatmas, they can convey the entire essence of Vedanta in one shloka. Eka shloki. Even when a devotee asked our Puja Gurudev at the end of a Gnana Yajna, he is just about to board the train. The train is departing from the platform. At that time, this lady asked him, Gurudev, I missed the whole thing. What was the essence in 30 seconds or less? She asked. He said, detach and attach. Detach from the lower tendencies and false values and attach to the higher. So let us conclude today's class by studying the Eka Shloki, the entire Vedanta Sara in one shloka. Kim jyotistava bhanuman ahanime ratrau pradipadikam syadevam ravideepa darshana vidhau kim jyotirakya me chakshustasya nimilanadi samaye kim dirdiyo darshane kim tatrahamato bhavan paramakam jyotistadasmin prabho jyotistadasmi prabho. This is a conversation between a guru and a shishya. The entire Vedanta is summarized in this. Guru asks, Tava jyotihi kim? What provides you with light? Shishya says, Ahanime bhanuman jyotihi ratrau pradipadikam jyotihi. By day, the sun is there to give us light. By night, I have a lamp. Guru, Syadevam. Yeah, right. Ravi, Deepa Darshana Vidhau, Kim Jyotihi, Akyahime. What is the light that sees these lights? Chakshuhu Tatra Jyotihi. The eyes. Guru says, Tasya chakshushaha nimilanadi samaye kim jyotihi. What is the light that illumines the eye? The Shishya says, Tada dihi jyotihi. The intellect. That's good. Diyo darshane kim jyotihi. What is that gives light to that intellect, that gives it the power to know? Tatra ahameva jyotihi. For that intellect, I provide that power. Ato bhavan paramakam jyotihi. Therefore, Guru says, you are that light of lights. Prabhoho aham tat jyotihi asmi. So all of us sadhakas, we should think it as aham brahma asmi. I am that light of lights. We will chant the first shloka of Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrung Karane, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrung Karane. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrutyorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnaat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. May all be happy. May all be healthy. May all see auspiciousness. May none suffer. Om, peace, peace, peace. Thank you, everyone.